The Rangers called her dead weight, a liability with a camera. She couldn't keep up, asked odd questions, and had no combat training. They mocked her the entire patrol. Then the ambush hit. Machine guns from 3 positions. 2 Rangers down, the unit pinned. That's when she opened her backpack. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories like this, please consider subscribing. What came out made every Ranger go completely silent. The briefing tent smelled like dust and stale coffee that had been sitting too long in the pot. Lieutenant Halstead stood at the front, arms crossed over his tactical vest, staring at a topographical map pinned to a corkboard that had seen better days. His jaw was tight, the kind of tight that came from years of grinding teeth through missions that made no sense. Outside, the pre-dawn light was just starting to bleed gray across the forward operating base. The heat had not yet arrived, but it was coming. It always came. By noon, the sand would be hot enough to burn through boot soles. By afternoon, the air would shimmer like broken glass. 8 Rangers sat on folding chairs or leaned against supply crates stacked along the tent walls. They were already in full kit, plates, magazines, helmets nearby within arm's reach, rifles propped against their legs or laid across their laps. Nobody looked happy. This was not the mission any of them wanted. Not the mission they had trained for, not the reason they had joined. Halstead tapped the map with 2 fingers. The valley was marked in red. A thin road snaked through it, flanked by ridgelines on both sides, high ground, natural choke points, elevation advantages for anyone with a rifle and patience, bad terrain for anyone moving through on foot or wheels, the kind of place where ambushes happened, where good soldiers died for bad reasons. He cleared his throat. The tent went quiet except for the hum of a generator outside and the distant sound of a helicopter warming up on the flight line. "This is a babysitting mission," Halstead said. His voice was flat, tired. "Command wants us to escort an embedded media representative through the valley for a controlled interview with local allies. Standard optics operation. We go in, we stay visible, we come back. Questions?" Corporal Torrens, mid-20s with a sun-scorched neck and a cocky smirk that hid genuine competence, groaned from the back. "Are we really risking our necks for some blogger, sir?" "With all due respect." Halstead did not smile. He had not smiled in weeks. Orders from command, optics matter. Apparently. Winning hearts and minds, showing the world we are the good guys. The usual. Sergeant Declan, older than most of the unit and steadier, with gray creeping into his temples, despite being only in his late 20s, leaned forward. His voice was low, measured. "That valley is not fully cleared, Lieutenant. We lost 2 men there 3 weeks ago, Johnson and Martinez. Still, hostile activity reported in the area. Intel says there is a cell operating in those hills." Halstead nodded slowly. "I know, believe me, I know. That is why we are going in with 3 vehicles and full Overwatch protocol. Keep the formation tight. Keep the civilian in the middle. Do not let them slow us down. Do not let them touch anything. Do not let them ask stupid questions. If contact happens, they stay flat and we handle it. Clear?" A chorus of affirmatives. Private Valen, the youngest in the group at 21, with a face that still looked like it belonged in a high school yearbook, raised his hand slightly. "What kind of reporter are we talking about, sir? Like CNN? BBC? One of those big networks?" Halstead glanced at a duty roster clipped to the side of the mapboard. One name was circled in red marker. The ink looked fresh, still wet in places. Embry coached, freelance conflict journalist. No military background listed. No prior embed experience with combat units. Cleared by Command for Civilian Embed. That is all we have. No photo, no bio. Just a name and a security clearance. Torrens muttered something to the ranger next to him. Kale, a wiry guy with sharp eyes and faster reflexes, smirked, but said nothing. They had been through 3 deployments together, had their own language. Halstead stared at the name longer than necessary. Something about it felt familiar, but he could not place it. It scratched at the back of his mind like a word on the tip of his tongue. He shook his head and turned back to the group. "We roll in 30 minutes. Check your gear. Check it twice. Stay sharp. This is a milk run until it is not. Dismissed." The Rangers stood and filed out. Equipment rattling, boots on plywood. The tent flap swinging in the hot wind that was already starting to pick up. Halstead stayed behind, staring at the map. The red circle around the valley seemed darker than it should have been. Like it had absorbed all the blood spilled there, like it was waiting for more. Outside, the sky was turning pale orange streaked with pink. The base was waking up, trucks idled, voices echoed across the dirt and gravel. The air smelled like diesel and sand and something burning in the distance. Always something burning. The vehicle staging area was a wide patch of gravel near the perimeter fence topped with razor wire. 3 armored Humvees sat in a row, engines already running, exhaust shimmering in the morning heat. Rangers moved around them like ants on a hill, loading gear, checking radios, adjusting straps, testing comms, rehearsing hand signals. A supply truck rolled in from the main gate and stopped near the second vehicle. The back flap opened. Dust billowed out. A figure climbed down slowly, carefully, like someone not used to military vehicles. Embry Coach stepped onto the gravel. She was late 30s, slim build, wire-frame glasses that caught the early light and made her eyes hard to see. She wore faded cargo pants that had been washed too many times, a plain gray shirt, and no body armor, no vest, no plates. Just a worn canvas backpack slung over one shoulder and an old film camera hanging from a strap around her neck. No helmet, no gloves. Nothing that suggested she belonged here. Nothing that said she understood where she was going. She stood near the truck for a moment, adjusting the backpack with both hands. Her movements were quick, efficient, practiced. Like she was used to carrying weight, but her face looked nervous, uncertain. Her eyes darted around the staging area, taking in the Rangers, the vehicles, the weapons, the controlled chaos of a unit preparing to move. She did not make eye contact with anyone, did not wave, did not introduce herself, just stood there like she was waiting for instructions. Torrens saw her first. He nudged Kyle and tilted his head toward her. Great. A liability with a camera. Look at her. She is going to get us killed. Cale grinned. Think she will make it past the gate. Give her 10 minutes before she asks to turn around. Halstead approached from the side. His shoulder ached from an old injury that flared up when the weather changed, but he did not show it, never showed it. He stopped a few feet away from her, looked her up and down. Assessed. You coached? Embry looked up. She nodded once. Quick. Yes. I appreciate the escort, Lieutenant. I know this is not what you signed up for. Her voice was quiet, steady but soft, like she was trying not to take up too much space, like she was apologizing for existing. Halstead had seen that before. Journalists who knew they were resented, who knew they were seen as dead weight, liabilities, targets that could not shoot back. Halstead studied her for a second longer. She did not look like most of the reporters he had dealt with. No branded vest with press and reflective letters. No expensive equipment. No entourage. Just a notebook tucked into her belt and the camera and the pack. Stay in the middle of the formation, he said. His tone was firm. Do not touch anything. Do not wander. Do not ask questions while we are moving. If contact happens, get flat and stay there. Do not try to film. Do not try to help. Just stay down and let us do our job. Understood? Understood. She did not argue, did not ask for clarification, did not push back, just nodded again and adjusted the backpack straps. Torrens walked past, carrying an ammo can that clanked with magazines. He glanced at her backpack. That thing looks heavy. You carrying bricks or something? What do journalists even need to carry? Embry pulled the pack closer to her chest, almost defensive. Her fingers gripped the straps tighter. Just gear, notebooks, camera equipment, water, the usual. Torrens shrugged and kept walking, muttered something under his breath about civilians not understanding weight distribution. Valen approached a moment later. He had a kind face, still looked like a kid despite the uniform and the rifle and the combat patches on his sleeves. He gestured toward the backpack with a slight smile. Want help loading that into the truck, ma'am? Looks like it is giving you trouble. Embry shook her head quickly, almost too quickly. I have got it. Thank you. I am used to it. Valen backed off, but he glanced at Declan, who was standing nearby, checking his rifle. He kept his voice low enough that Embry could not hear. That bag weighs like 40 pounds. Easy. What is she carrying? That is not camera gear. Declan did not answer right away. He was watching her. The way she adjusted the straps, the way she tested the weight distribution by shifting her shoulders, the way she settled it on her back with practiced ease. It was not the movement of someone unfamiliar with heavy loads, not the movement of a civilian who packed too much. It was the movement of someone who knew exactly how to carry weight, who had done it 1,000 times before. He filed it away, made a mental note, said nothing. They loaded into the Humvees 10 minutes later. Embry rode in the middle vehicle, wedged between two rangers on a bench seat that was not made for comfort. Torrance sat across from her, rifle between his knees. Cale was up front next to the driver. Declan sat to her left, rifle between his knees as well, eyes forward. The convoy rolled out just after sunrise. Dust clouds rose behind the tires like brown fog. The road out of the base was paved for the first mile, smooth and maintained. Then it turned to packed dirt, then gravel, then barely a road at all, just tire tracks and sand. The landscape was barren, brown hills that looked like they had been burned, rocks jutting out of the ground like broken bones, scrub brush that clung to life in defiance of logic. Nothing green, nothing alive except the insects that buzzed against the windows and the buzzards that circled overhead, waiting for something to die. Embry sat with her backpack on her lap. She did not film anything, did not pull out the camera, did not take notes, just stared out the small window, watching the terrain roll past. Her eyes moved constantly, scanning, tracking, following the ridgelines in the distance, marking elevation changes, noting choke points, recording everything. Torrens leaned back, arms crossed, trying to look relaxed, trying to project confidence. "You been embedded before?" Embry glanced at him. "A few times. Refugee camps mostly, humanitarian zones, places after the fighting stops." Torrens smirked. "So no real action. This will be a culture shock. Different when bullets are flying. Different when people are trying to kill you." Embry did not respond, just turned back to the window. Her jaw tightened slightly, almost imperceptibly. But Declan noticed. She was tracking something. Her eyes moved across the ridgelines in the distance, following elevation changes, marking high points, identifying potential observation posts. It was subtle, but deliberate. Professional. After a few minutes, she pulled out a small notebook from her belt, flipped it open to a blank page, started sketching with a pencil she pulled from her pocket. Cale glanced back from the front seat. "You an artist or something? Drawing the scenery?" Embry did not look up. "Just documenting, keeping notes." Declan leaned over slightly to see what she was drawing. It was not a casual sketch, not artistic, not impressionistic. It was a precise diagram of the valley they were approaching. Elevation angles measured in degrees, sight lines marked with arrows, distance markers estimated in meters, wind direction indicated with notation. The kind of thing someone with training would draw, the kind of thing a forward observer would sketch, or a sniper planning a shot. He frowned, felt something cold move through his chest. Embry paused, pen hovering over the page. She looked at Declan. Her expression was neutral, unreadable. "What is the effective range on your M4s here? With the wind shear in this valley, does it affect your accuracy? Significantly?" The question landed wrong, too specific, too technical, too informed. Not the kind of question a journalist asked, not the kind of thing someone unfamiliar with ballistics would think to ask. Cale turned around fully now, his eyes narrowed. "Why, you planning to shoot something? You planning to pick up a rifle?" Embry shook her head. "Just trying to understand what you deal with, what the challenges are, for context, for the article." Torrens laughed. "Right. Because reporters need to know ballistics and wind calculations. Because that is important for your story." Embry closed the notebook. She did not argue, did not defend herself, just tucked it back into her belt and went quiet, stared out the window again. But Declan kept watching her. Something was off. Something did not add up. The pack, the sketches, the questions, the way she moved, the way she carried herself. It was wrong. All of it. The convoy slowed as they entered the narrower section of the valley. The cliffs rose higher on both sides now, steep and jagged. The road turned to gravel that crunched under the tires. Rocks jutted out from the slopes like broken teeth. The shadows were deeper here, darker. The sun could not reach the bottom of the valley floor. Halstead's voice crackled over the radio. 2 clicks to the interview site. Stay sharp. This valley has been quiet too long. Eyes on the ridges. Watch for movement. Declan felt it too. The air was too still, too quiet. No birds, no movement on the ridges, no signs of life. Just heat and silence and the feeling of being watched. The feeling that always came before contact. The feeling that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. 10 minutes later, the convoy stopped. The vehicles could not go farther. The road ahead was too narrow, too unstable. Rocks had fallen across it. Erosion had carved channels. It was impassable for Humvees. Dismount, Halstead ordered over the radio. We go on foot from here. Standard patrol formation. Keep it tight. Keep it professional. The Rangers climbed out, formed a tactical column. Rifles up, muzzles down, fingers off triggers, but ready. Spacing tight, but not clustered. Overlapping fields of fire, eyes scanning sectors. Professional, disciplined. Embry was placed in the center, surrounded on all sides, protected, isolated, contained. She struggled at first. The backpack was heavy. The heat was immediate and crushing like a physical weight pressing down. The altitude made breathing harder. She stumbled once on loose gravel, caught herself with her hands, adjusted the straps. Torrens muttered to Valen. $20 she pukes before we hit the site. 30 says she asks to turn back. But after the first 100 meters, Embry found her rhythm. Her breathing steadied, controlled, measured. Her steps fell into sync with the formation. She was not fast, but she was not slowing them down either. She kept pace, maintained position, did not complain. Declan noticed again the way she moved, the way she distributed weight, the way she placed her feet on uneven ground. It was practiced, trained, muscle memory from somewhere. You hike a lot? He asked quietly. Just making conversation. Testing. Embry glanced at him. Used to. Long time ago. That was all she said. But her breathing pattern was wrong for someone unused to physical exertion. It was controlled, rhythmic. The kind of breathing you learned in training. The kind that conserved energy over long movements. They moved deeper into the valley. The walls closed in tighter on both sides. The shadows grew longer despite the sun climbing higher in the sky. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the valley itself was holding its breath. Halstead raised a fist. The universal signal for halt. The column stopped as one, every ranger freezing in place. Weapons coming up slightly, sectors covered. Embry stopped too, but her head turned immediately. She was staring at the ridgeline to the east, high up, where the rocks formed a natural platform, where an observation post would be, where a sniper would set up. Declan followed her gaze, saw nothing but rocks and shadows. What? Embry did not answer right away. Her breathing had changed, slower, more controlled. The way someone breathes when they are trying to calm their heart rate, when they are preparing for something. How many spotters do you have on those heights? She asked quietly. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Halstead, 15 meters ahead, heard her over the comms. None. It is a controlled route. We cleared it yesterday. Intelligence says it is secure. Embry kept staring, did not argue, did not insist. But her hand drifted toward the zipper on her backpack. Slow, deliberate, like she was reaching for something she knew was there. Declan saw it. His pulse quickened. Why are you reaching for your bag? Embry opened her mouth to respond. Her lips formed the first word. Then came the sound, a distant metallic click, sharp, unmistakable. The sound of an IED, trigger being activated, the sound that meant someone was about to die. Halstead's eyes went wide. His voice exploded over the radio. Get down! IED! Get down now! The lead vehicle erupted in a fireball. The IED was buried under the road, shaped charge, military grade. The explosion tore through the front axle and sent the Humvee spinning sideways. Metal screamed, glass shattered, black smoke billowed into the sky. The concussion wave knocked Valen off his feet. Before anyone could process it, machine gun fire erupted from 3 elevated positions, high on the ridges, dug in, pre-sighted, muzzle flashes like angry fireflies in the shadows. The rounds came in fast. Dirt exploded around the column. Rocks shattered. Metal pinged. 2 Rangers went down immediately. Valen screamed and grabbed his leg, blood pouring between his fingers. Another Ranger, Rourke, took a round to the chest plate and dropped hard, gasping, ribs broken from the impact. Chaos. Halstead was shouting orders, but his voice was drowned out by the gunfire. Radios crackled with static. Someone was jamming them. White smoke grenades went off. Black smoke from the burning vehicle mixed with dust, kicked up by rounds impacting. The platoon was pinned. 3 shooters, elevated positions, perfect overlapping fields of fire, perfect kill zone. This was not random. This was planned, rehearsed, professional. Embry dove behind a boulder with Torrens and Kale. She was flat, breathing controlled, too controlled, not panicking, not freezing, just calm, assessing. Her eyes moved across the ridge, counting muzzle flashes, tracking patterns, calculating angles. Torrens was panicking, blind firing uphill, bursts of 3, 5, 7, not aiming, just suppression. Where the hell are they? I cannot see them. Too much smoke. Kale was scanning with his optic, trying to acquire targets, but the smoke and dust made it impossible. I cannot get a lock. They are too high, too dug in. Halstead tried to move forward to establish a better position. A round caught him in the shoulder, punched through the gap between his vest and his arm. Blood sprayed. He spun and went down hard behind cover. Declan dragged him back, pressing a hand to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. The unit was pinned. 3 shooters, elevated, dug in, perfect ambush. They could not move, could not advance, could not retreat, could only hunker down and die slowly. Embry was completely still behind the boulder, but she was not cowering, not hiding. Her eyes were moving, counting, tracking, calculating. Wind speed from the smoke movement. Distance estimated from the sound delay between muzzle flash and impact. Elevation difference from the angle of incoming fire. Torrens glanced at her. Stay down. Do not move. Do not make yourself a target. She did not respond. She was reaching for her backpack again, slowly, deliberately. Kale saw her and shouted, "What are you doing? Keep your head down. Stop moving." Embry unzipped her backpack. The sound was almost silent under the chaos. Gunfire, explosions, screaming. But Kale heard it, saw her hand reach inside. She pulled out a rifle case, compact, black, hard shell, foam-lined, professional. Torrens stared. His mouth fell open. "What the hell is that? Where did you get that?" She opened the case with practiced efficiency. Inside was a disassembled rifle, custom, modular, suppressed barrel, precision stock, high magnification scope, match-grade trigger. The kind of weapon that cost more than most cars. The kind that was not available to civilians. The kind that belonged to someone with clearance and training and authority. Kale's eyes went wide. "Where the hell did you get that? What are you?" Embry did not answer. She started assembling it. Her hands moved with mechanical precision. No hesitation, no fumbling. Barrel connected to receiver. Stock locked into place. Scope mounted and zeroed. Magazine inserted. Bolt worked. 8 seconds from case to ready. Declan crawled over, eyes wide. "Who are you? What is happening?" Embry chambered around. The sound was almost silent. A soft metallic click. She checked the wind by watching smoke drift across the valley. Adjusted the scope with 2 precise clicks. Her breathing slowed, deepened. The breathing pattern of someone entering the zone. The space where nothing existed except the shot. She looked at Declan. Her face was calm, too calm. Her eyes were focused, clear. Like she had done this 1,000 times. Like this was who she really was. Permission to engage? Declan stared at her like she was speaking another language. Like the world had stopped making sense. "You are a reporter. You are press. You are not supposed to have a weapon." Embry's voice was steady, firm, permission to engage. Halstead, bleeding, heard her from 10 meters away. His voice was weak but furious, pain and anger and confusion all mixed together. "Do not! Stand down! You are a civilian." She fired anyway. The suppressed crack was soft, almost gentle, like a whisper in the chaos, a polite cough. 600 meters uphill, through smoke and dust and heat shimmer, the first shooter dropped. Clean headshot. No second shot needed. The machine gun went silent. Torrance stopped firing. His mouth hung open, staring at her. What the hell was that? Embry shifted position, adjusted her breathing, compensated for the next target, fired again. The second shooter fell. Another headshot. Perfect. Clinical. Then the third. The other machine gunner. The sound suppressor kept the shots almost silent, but the effect was devastating. The enemy fire slowed. The ambushers were realizing someone was picking them off, someone they could not see, someone who did not miss. 8, 9, 10, 11. Suppressed cracks echoed softly across the valley, each one followed by a body falling, each one perfect, each one final. Total silence followed. The gunfire stopped. The ambush collapsed. The valley was quiet except for the crackling of the burning Humvee and the moaning of the wounded. Embry lowered the rifle, checked the chamber, ejected the magazine, began disassembling the weapon with the same speed she had used to build it. Barrel, stock, scope, back into the case, zipped closed. The Rangers stared at her, every single one, eyes wide, mouths open, trying to process what they had just witnessed, trying to reconcile the nervous journalist with the precision shooter who had just saved their lives. Torrance was shaking. His hands trembled. His voice came out hoarse, cracked. What the hell was that? Who are you? Embry packed the rifle back into her backpack, zipped it closed, looked up at the ridgeline where 11 bodies lay. Her expression was unreadable, blank. Like she had just completed a routine task. Like this was normal. 11 confirmed. Area is clear. You can secure it now. Declan crawled closer. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. His voice was barely a whisper. Disbelief and awe and fear all mixed together. Who trained you? Where did you learn to shoot like that? Embry did not answer. She just sat there, breathing steady, staring at nothing. Her hands were not shaking. Her face showed no emotion. Nothing. The silence stretched, heavy, oppressive. Then Halstead's voice, weak and pained. Medevac inbound, 3 minutes out. If you have ever met someone who carried a weight no one else could see, someone who never asked for recognition but earned it with every quiet step, someone who was more than they appeared, share your story below. And if you want to see how this ends, stay with us. The wind shifted across the valley floor, carrying dust and smoke in lazy spirals. The air smelled like cordite and scorched metal, and something darker underneath. Blood, fear, death. Nobody moved for a long moment. The Rangers were frozen in place, staring at Embry like she had just materialized out of another dimension. Like reality had cracked open and revealed something underneath that should not exist. Torrance was the first to break the silence. His voice cracked when he spoke, shook with adrenaline and confusion and something else. That was not luck. That was not beginner luck. That was not even advanced shooting. That was something else. Embry did not look at him. She was checking the ridge again, scanning for movement through squinted eyes. Her breathing was controlled, measured. The kind of rhythm you learned through years of practice, not instinct. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through the mouth for 4. The box breathing technique used by snipers and special operations forces to maintain heart rate control under stress. Cale crawled forward, keeping low behind cover. His rifle was still up, but his hands were shaking badly enough that the muzzle wavered. Who the hell are you? What are you? Embry ignored the question. She pulled a small rangefinder from her pack, the kind with laser measurement capabilities, and checked the distances. 1. More time. Confirming, verifying. Then she looked at Declan with eyes that were too steady, too calm. Like she had done this before. Like she had done this many times before. You need to secure those bodies, confirm kills, and check for secondary devices. They might have rigged the positions with explosives or booby traps. Standard ambush doctrine. Declan stared at her. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You are giving orders now? You are telling us how to do our jobs? Embry met his eyes. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I am giving you information. What you do with it is your call. But those positions need to be cleared before you call this area secure. Halstead groaned from behind cover. His shoulder was bleeding through the bandage Declan had applied. The fabric was already soaked dark red. His face was pale, but his voice was sharp, angry, confused. Somebody better start explaining what just happened, right now. Embry stood slowly, keeping the rifle case close to her chest, like it was something precious, something that needed protection. She did not offer an explanation, did not defend herself, just walked toward the nearest piece of solid cover and crouched again, eyes still on the high ground, still scanning, still alert. Torrens was breathing hard, hyperventilating slightly. He looked at Cale, then at Declan, then back at Embry. This is insane. She just took out 11 hostiles in under 2 minutes. 11, I counted. Did anyone else count? Cale shook his head slowly, like he was trying to wake up from a dream. I have seen Delta guys miss shots like that. I have seen the best snipers in the Army struggle with conditions like this. Who is she? What unit is she from? Valen was still on the ground, clutching his leg. The medic was working on him, applying a tourniquet, but Valen's face was twisted in pain and shock. His eyes were locked on Embry, wide, disbelieving. He whispered to the medic working on him, "Did that really just happen? Did I just see what I think I saw?" The medic did not answer. He was focused on stopping the bleeding, wrapping the wound, but his hands were moving slower than they should have been. Distracted, he kept glancing at Embry too. Everyone did. She was a magnet, a mystery, an impossibility. Declan moved to Halstead and helped him sit up against a boulder. The lieutenant winced but waved him off. "I am fine, just a through and through. Get a sit rep. I want confirmation on those targets before medevac arrives." Declan keyed his radio. All units, report status. Sound off. The responses came back one by one. 2 wounded. Valen with a leg wound. Halstead with a shoulder wound. Rourke had taken a hit to the plate but was conscious. Ribs bruised or cracked, but alive. The lead vehicle was totaled, but the driver had gotten out before it burned. 11 enemy combatants down. No additional contact, no movement on the ridges. Declan turned to Embry. She was still scanning the ridges with borrowed binoculars, methodical and professional, like she was running through a mental checklist, standard post-engagement protocol. He walked over to her, kept his voice low enough that the others could not hear clearly. "I need to know what just happened. I need to know who you are." Embry finally looked at him, lowered the binoculars. Her expression was unreadable. "What happened is, your unit is not dead. That is what happened. That is not an answer. That is evasion. It is the only one I have right now. It is the only one that matters." Declan clenched his jaw, felt frustration rising. "You are a journalist. You are press. You are not supposed to have a rifle. You are definitely not supposed to know how to use one like that. Those were not normal shots. Those were expert-level precision shots under combat conditions with wind and smoke and stress. Who trained you?" Embry turned back to the ridge. Her voice was quiet, almost sad. "Supposed to. Past tense. A lot of things are not what they are supposed to be anymore." Before Declan could respond, the sound of rotor blades cut through the air. The medevac was inbound. Dust kicked up again as the helicopter descended into the valley, landing 50 meters from the column in a clearing that had been marked with smoke grenades. The medics moved fast, professional, efficient. Valen was loaded first onto a stretcher, then Halstead, who tried to walk, but was forced down by the flight medic. Rourke walked himself to the bird, one hand pressed against his chest plate, face tight with pain, but determined not to show weakness. The Rangers formed a perimeter while the wounded were evacuated. Standard operating procedure, security first. Always security first. Embry stayed where she was. She did not move toward the helicopter, did not try to leave, did not ask to be evacuated. Just watched the ridges like she was waiting for something, like she expected another attack, like she knew something they did not. Torrens walked up beside her. His rifle was still in his hands, but he was not aiming it at anything, just holding it. His voice was quieter now, less cocky, more genuine. "You saved our lives, all of us." Embry did not respond, did not turn, did not acknowledge. Torrens kept talking, filling the silence. "I do not know who you are. I do not know what you are. But I owe you. We all owe you." Embry turned to look at him. Her expression was still unreadable, but her voice was soft, tired. "You do not owe me anything. I did what needed to be done. Then what do you want?" Why were you here? Why did you have that rifle? Embry looked back at the ridge, at the 11 bodies that lay there, at the evidence of what she had done. To make sure you all get home. That is all. The helicopter lifted off, rotors beating the air into submission. The dust settled slowly. The valley was quiet except for the crackling of the burning Humvee that still smoldered. Declan called the unit together. They needed to secure the ambush site before moving. Check. The bodies. Collect intelligence. Document everything. Take photos. Gather evidence. Standard post-contact protocol. Embry walked with them, but stayed at the edge of the group. She did not touch anything, did not take photos with her camera, did not ask questions, just observed with the same careful attention she had shown before, watching, learning, recording mentally. When they reached the first body high on the ridge, Cale knelt beside it. The climb had been steep and exhausting. The position was well chosen, good cover, clear sightline, professional setup. He examined the body, single headshot, clean entry wound through the forehead, no exit wound. The bullet had fragmented inside the skull. Subsonic rounds, suppressed, precision work, military grade. He looked up at Declan, who had climbed up behind him. These were not lucky shots. This was training, high-level training, special operations level. Declan glanced back down at Embry. She was standing 50 meters below, arms crossed, staring at the ground, not watching them, not interested in the results. She already knew. The second body was the same, third, fourth. All 11 were identical. Headshots, clinical, efficient, no wasted ammunition, no follow-up shots needed. One shot, one kill. The motto of military snipers. Torrance stood over the last one, the machine gunner who had been in the most protected position. This guy was 800 meters out. Elevated position, partial cover, moving target when she shot. That is not a shot you make unless you have done it 1,000 times, unless it is muscle memory. Cale whistled low, shook his head in disbelief. I know guys who have been shooting their whole lives who could not make that shot under these conditions. Who is she? Declan walked back down to Embry. She did not look at him, did not acknowledge his approach, just stood there with her arms crossed, staring at nothing. We need to call this in. Command is going to have questions. A lot of questions. Embry nodded once. I know. They are going to want answers. Real answers. I know. Are you going to give them any? Embry finally met his eyes. That depends on what they ask. The convoy returned to the forward operating base 3 hours later. The lead vehicle was gone, destroyed. They moved slower, more cautiously, with every ranger on high alert. But there was no further contact. The valley was empty. Silent. Like it was morning. The sun was high now, baking the sand white and making the air shimmer. The base was busy when they rolled through the gate. Soldiers moving between buildings, trucks unloading supplies, helicopters coming and going, life continuing like nothing had happened. Like 11 men had not just died. Like 8 rangers had not just been saved by a journalist who was not really a journalist. But word had already spread. It always did. The base was small enough that news traveled fast. Whispers, rumors, speculation. When the Humvees rolled through the gate, people stopped and stared. The lead vehicle was missing. The Rangers looked shaken, exhausted. And there was a civilian with them, walking like she did not belong, but moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was. Embry kept her head down. She did not make eye contact with anyone, did not respond to the stares, just followed Declan toward the command building at the center of the base. Inside, it was cooler, fans running overhead, radios crackling with traffic from other units, officers moving between rooms with clipboards and tablets, managing a war from behind desks. Declan led her to a small room at the back of the building, concrete walls, a metal table, 2 chairs facing each other, a single overhead light that buzzed slightly, the kind of room where interrogations happened, where truths were extracted. Wait here, Declan said. His voice was neutral, professional. Command wants to talk to you. Major Grayson is on his way. Embry sat down, placed her backpack on the floor, beside her with care, folded her hands on the table, calm, composed, like she was waiting for a job interview, not an interrogation. Declan hesitated at the door. He wanted to say something, wanted to ask more questions, but he did not know where to start. Finally, he settled on something simple. For what it is worth, thank you. You saved us. All of us. Embry did not respond, did not nod, did not acknowledge, just sat there staring at the wall. Declan left, closed the door behind him. The lock clicked. She sat alone for 20 minutes. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of helicopters taking off and landing. She did not move, did not fidget, did not check her phone. Just sat there, breathing slowly, staring at the wall with unfocused eyes. When the door opened again, it was not Declan. Major Grayson walked in. He was in his 50s, graying at the temples with sharp eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He carried a thin folder under one arm. Behind him was Halstead, arm in a sling, face tight with pain and something else. Anger, betrayal, confusion. Grayson sat down across from Embry. Halstead stood near the door, arms crossed as much as the sling allowed. Grayson opened the folder slowly, deliberately. Inside were a few printed pages. Not much. He scanned them for a moment, then looked up at Embry. Embry coached, freelance conflict journalist, no criminal record, no military service on file, no formal training listed anywhere, no prior embed experience with combat units. Embry said nothing. Her face was neutral, blank. Grayson leaned back in the chair, made it creak. That is what your paperwork says. Clean, simple, unremarkable, the kind of background that does not raise flags. He paused, let the silence stretch, a technique, waiting for her to fill it, but she did not. Except, that is a lie. All of it is a lie. Embry did not blink. Grayson pulled out another document. This one was stamped in red. Classified, compartmented, restricted. Because I just got off the phone with JSOC, and they flagged your biometrics the second you landed on this base. Fingerprints, retinal scan, DNA from the water bottle you drank from. All of it went into the system, and all of it came back with alerts. Halstead shifted his weight. His voice was low, dangerous. Who is she? Grayson kept his eyes on Embry. Your real name is Embry Caldecott, formerly staff sergeant, formerly part of a program that does not officially exist. A sniper training program for Tier 1 operators. The people who do not miss. The people who do not exist on paper. He flipped a page. Most of your file is redacted. Black lines everywhere. But what is not redacted tells me everything I need to know. You were one of the best instructors they ever had. Washout rate in your courses was 70%. The people who made it through your program went on to become legends. Ghost stories. The kind of shooters other snipers tell stories about. Halstead stepped forward. His voice rose. Why the hell are you pretending to be press? Why are you lying about who you are? Embry finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, steady. Because I am not military anymore. That person does not exist anymore. Grayson leaned forward, elbows on the table. You went dark 4 years ago. Resigned without explanation. Changed your name legally. Disappeared from the system. And now you show up in a combat zone with a rifle that should not exist, making shots that should not be possible. Why? Embry looked down at her hands. They were steady, no tremor, no shake. But something in her face had changed. A crack in the wall, a glimpse of something underneath. I lost someone. That is why I left. Grayson waited. Let her continue at her own pace. Embry took a slow breath. I was an instructor. I trained snipers for classified operations. My job was to make sure they did not miss, that they were ready, that they came home. Halstead was staring at her now, his anger fading slightly, replaced by something else, curiosity. And Embry closed her eyes, opened them again. Her voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. And one of them did not come home. One of them died because of me. Grayson pulled out a photograph from the folder, slid it across the table slowly. Embry looked down, stared at the photo for a long moment. Her jaw tightened. Her hands formed fists on the table, but she did not look away. The photo was of a young man, early 20s, clean-cut, bright eyes, smiling in his dress uniform. American flag in the background, name tape visible, Kellum. Grayson tapped the photo. PFC Reese Kellum, 22 years old, sniper. Graduated your course with honors at the top of his class. Deployed 3 weeks later to Operation Cinder. Embry stared at the photo. Did not speak. He died on his first mission, Grayson said softly. His voice was not accusatory, just factual, stating what was. You know what happened? You watched the footage. Halstead stepped closer. His voice was gentler now. What happened to him? Embry was silent for a long moment. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, broken, raw. He hesitated. He had the shot. Everything was perfect, but he hesitated, and it cost him everything. Grayson leaned back, let her continue. Embry kept staring at the photo. He had the target in his scope. Clear line, no complications, but he waited. Too long. And when he finally pulled the trigger, it was too late. She paused, swallowed hard. His spotter died first, then him. Both of them. Because he could not pull the trigger when it mattered. Halstead exhaled slowly. That was not your fault. Hesitation happens. It is part of being human. Embry looked up sharply. Her eyes were red but dry. It was my fault. I certified him. I told him he was ready. I sent him out there. I signed the paper that killed him. Grayson shook his head. You trained him. You did not kill him. Embry's voice rose slightly, emotion breaking through. I taught him how to shoot. I taught him mechanics, technique, calculations. But I did not teach him the one thing that mattered. I did not teach him how to live with pulling the trigger, how to be okay with taking a life, how to come home and sleep at night after killing someone. She stood up suddenly, paced to the wall, put her hands against it. I taught him everything except what he actually needed to survive. And that is why he is dead. The room was silent, heavy. Grayson closed the folder. So you left. Changed your name. Became a reporter. Embry turned around. Her voice was steadier now, but still sad. I thought if I could document wars instead of training people to fight them, maybe I could balance it out. Maybe I could make up for what I did. Halstead frowned. That does not explain why you had a rifle today. Why you came prepared. Embry looked at him. Because I knew where we were going. That valley, that terrain. It was the same area. Where Reese died. Same enemy, same tactics, same everything. Grayson raised an eyebrow. So you carried an illegal firearm into a combat zone on a hunch. Embry did not flinch, did not apologize. I carried it because I was not going to let it happen again. I was not going to watch more soldiers die when I had the skills to stop it. Halstead stared at her, trying to understand. You saved 8 lives today. 8 men who are going home because of you. Embry looked down at the photo of Reese still on the table, but I could not save his, and that is the one that matters most. The silence stretched, long, uncomfortable, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. Grayson folded his hands on the table. JSOC wants you back. They will bury the weapon charge if you re-enlist. Full reinstatement. Your rank restored. You would be teaching again within a month. Shaping the next generation. Making sure what happened to Kellum does not happen again. Embry looked up sharply. Her voice was firm. No. Grayson tilted his head. You are one of the best instructors they ever had. You could save lives. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Embry stood, picked up her backpack. Her voice was final. I said no. I have saved enough lives, and I have cost enough too. I am not going back. She walked to the door, stopped, looked back at Grayson. I will cooperate with whatever debrief you need. I will answer whatever questions you have. But I am not going back to that life. Grayson did not argue. He just nodded once. Understood. Embry left. Outside, the base was still humming with activity. Afternoon heat bearing down. Soldiers moving between buildings. Life continuing. But as she walked toward the barracks they had assigned her, she saw them, standing in formation near the motor pool. The Rangers, all 8 of them, waiting. Declan stepped forward. He held something in his hand, a piece of paper folded neatly. We filed the after-action report. His voice was respectful, formal. Embry stopped, walking, waited, credited to unknown friendly sniper. Your name is not in it, like you asked. You will not show up in any records. You will not be identified. You are a ghost. Embry nodded slowly. Thank you. Halstead stepped forward. His arm was still in a sling, but he moved with purpose and determination. He stopped in front of her, looked her in the eyes, then slowly, carefully, he raised his good hand and saluted. One by one, the rest of the unit followed. Declan, Torrens, Cale, Valen leaning heavily on crutches with his leg bandaged, Rourke holding his ribs, all of them, standing at attention, saluting her. Embry stood frozen, her throat tightened, her eyes burned. She wanted to salute back. Every instinct in her body screamed to return the gesture, but she could not. She was not military anymore. She had given that up. She had walked away. Instead, she nodded, deep, slow, respectful, acknowledging what they were offering. Valen limped forward on his crutches. His voice was thick with emotion. You saved my life. Thank you. I am going home because of you. Embry looked at him. Her voice was barely audible, cracked with emotion. I am sorry I could not save his. Valen frowned, confused. Who? Embry did not answer. She just walked past them, toward the barracks, carrying the weight only she could see. The night was quiet. Embry lay on a narrow cot in a room that smelled like disinfectant and old sweat. Her backpack was beside her on the floor. The rifle case was inside, zipped closed, waiting. She stared at the ceiling. Could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Reese, saw his face, heard his voice, watched him die over and over again. In her mind, she replayed the mission footage, the hesitation, the missed shot, the death of his spotter, Reese trying to run, trying to escape, the bullet that found him, the way he fell, his final words echoing, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. She closed her eyes tighter, but the images did not stop. Someone knocked on the door, soft, hesitant. Embry sat up. Come in. Grayson stepped inside. He did not turn on the light, just stood near the door, silhouetted against the hallway light behind him. I thought you should know. We recovered intel from the ambush site. Those were not random fighters. They were trained, coordinated, experienced. Probably the same cell that killed your trainee 4 years ago. Same tactics, same setup, same everything. Embry stared at him. Processing? Grayson continued. His voice was gentle. You took out their best shooters today, their most experienced operatives. You probably saved dozens of lives down the line. Future missions, future ambushes that will never happen now. Embry said nothing. What did it matter? Numbers did not balance, lives did not trade evenly. Reese was still dead. Grayson walked closer, held out a business card, simple, white. Just a phone number, no name, no agency. If you change your mind about coming back. Embry did not take it, did not move. Grayson set it on the small table beside her cot. Then he left without another word. The door closed softly behind him. Embry sat in the dark. Alone. The card sat on the table. She did not pick it up, did not look at it. She reached into her pack and pulled out her notebook, flipped to the last page. There was a photo taped inside, the same one Grayson had shown her. Reese, smiling, young, alive, believing she had prepared him for what was coming. She stared at it for a long time, traced the edge with one finger. Then she whispered into the darkness, I am sorry. I am so sorry. The next morning, Embry boarded a civilian transport flight. No ceremony, no goodbye, no acknowledgement. Just walked across the tarmac alone with her backpack and disappeared into the cargo hold of a contractor plane heading west. Grayson watched from the operations building window. Halstead stood beside him, arm still in a sling. She is not coming back, Halstead said. It was not a question. Grayson shook his head. No, she is not. Some people cannot forgive themselves, no matter what they do, no matter how many lives they save. On the tarmac below, Torrens stood with Declan. They watched the plane taxi toward the runway, engines roaring. We called her a liability, Torrens said quietly. His voice was thoughtful, regretful. Declan did not respond right away. When he did, his voice carried weight. She was the only one who knew what to do, the only one ready. She saved us. All of us. The plane lifted off, banked west toward home, disappeared into the morning sun. Inside, Embry sat alone in a row of empty seats. She pressed her forehead against the small window, watched the desert shrink below, brown and endless and empty. She thought about Reese, about the 11 men she had killed, about the 8 she had saved, about the impossible math that would never balance. She did not know which mattered more, but she knew she could not go back, could not become that person again, could not sign papers that sent young soldiers to die, could not train more Reese Kellums who would hesitate at the wrong moment, could not carry more ghosts. The photo in her backpack felt heavy, heavier than the rifle, heavier than everything. She whispered his name, Reese, and for the first time in 4 years, she let herself cry. Quiet tears that no one saw, that no one would ever know about. Grief carried alone. If someone you know carries a burden they never speak about, a weight that shaped them in ways no one else can see, a choice that cost them everything. Let us know in the comments. And if this story is pulling you in, subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. Because there is one more chapter to this story, one more truth to reveal. The flight home took 18 hours, 3 connections, 2 continents. Embry sat in economy, wedged between a businessman who worked on his laptop the entire time, typing furiously with earbuds in, and a window that showed nothing but darkness for the first 6 hours, an ocean of black, an absence of light. She did not sleep, could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the valley, the smoke rising in columns, the muzzle flashes like angry fireflies in the shadows, the way each target dropped with mathematical precision. 1, 2, 3, counting up to 11. Each number, a life ended. Each shot, a choice she could not take back. She pressed her forehead against the cold plastic window and watched the world pass below in fragments that barely registered. Desert first. Endless brown stretching to every horizon. Then, ocean. Dark water that looked solid from 30,000 feet. Then, clouds. Thick white blankets that hid everything. Finally, cities at night. Grids of light that looked like circuit boards, constellations made by humans instead of stars. Evidence of civilization, of life continuing, of people who had no idea what happened in distant valleys. She thought about Reese the entire time. Not just his death, not just the mission footage that played on repeat in her mind, but everything before. The training sessions where he had been eager and focused and hungry to learn. The way he asked questions that showed he was thinking 3 steps ahead. The way he practiced until his hands bled and his shoulders ached and his eyes could barely focus. The way he looked at her when she told him he was ready. With pride, with gratitude, with trust. She remembered the day she certified him. It had been a bright afternoon in late spring. The range was empty except for the 2 of them. The rest of the unit had been dismissed early. He had just completed his final qualification shoot. Perfect scores across every category. Marksmanship, field craft, decision-making under pressure, stress inoculation, target identification, rules of engagement, everything. She had looked at his scores for a long time, longer than necessary, because once she signed the form, he would deploy, he would go to war, he would use everything she taught him, he would kill people, and maybe he would die. She had signed it with a pen that felt heavy in her hand, handed the paper to him, told him he was ready with confidence she truly felt. He had smiled. It was a young smile, untested, confident, proud. Thank you, Sergeant. I will not let you down. I will make you proud. She had believed him. She had believed in him. She had been certain she had done her job correctly, had given him everything he needed, had prepared him for what was coming. 3 weeks later, he was dead, and his final words had been an apology. The plane hit turbulence over the Atlantic, violent shaking that made the businessman grip his armrest and mutter a prayer under his breath. Embry did not move, did not flinch, just stared out the window at the darkness and thought about all the things she should have taught Reese, but did not. Not because she did not know them, but because they were not part of the curriculum. They were not measurable, not quantifiable, not something you could test on a range with targets and timers. She should have taught him how to carry the weight of a kill, how to live with the moment after you pull the trigger, how to go home and look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back, how to be human after being a weapon, how to love after learning to kill. But she had not. Because no one had taught her either. She had learned it alone, in the dark, over years, through nightmares and isolation and failed relationships and therapy sessions that went nowhere. And by the time she figured it out, by the time she understood what was missing, she had already sent Reese to die. The plane landed in Frankfurt. Gray morning, rain streaking the windows. She had a 4-hour layover. She walked through the terminal like a ghost. Past duty-free shops selling perfume and chocolate and watches. Past restaurants filled with travelers eating breakfast and reading newspapers. Past families reuniting at arrival gates with hugs and tears and joy she could not comprehend anymore. She found a quiet corner near an empty gate, sat down in a hard plastic chair, pulled out her notebook with hands that felt numb, stared at the blank page until the lines blurred. She tried to write, tried to process, tried to put words to what had happened in the valley, but the only sentence that formed was this: I killed 11 men and it felt like breathing. She stared at the words for a long time, then closed the notebook hard enough that the sound echoed in the empty gate area, shoved it back in her pack like it had burned her. The next flight was shorter, 6 hours. She sat in a middle seat this time, between a mother with a sleeping toddler wrapped in a blanket and an elderly man who read a newspaper the entire flight, rustling the pages every few minutes. She watched the mother adjust the blanket around her child with infinite care, gentle hands, protective, the kind of love that expected nothing in return, the kind that simply existed because it had to. Embry thought about the 11 men. Did they have children, wives, mothers who would receive the news and collapse in doorways, fathers who would stop talking, siblings who would carry the absence forever? She did not know, and she realized she did not want to know, because if she knew, she would have to carry them too, and she was already carrying enough, more than anyone should carry. The plane landed in a city she barely recognized anymore. It had changed in the months she had been gone. New construction everywhere, cranes dotting the skyline, new billboards advertising products she did not recognize, new traffic patterns that confused her. Or maybe it had always been this way and she had just forgotten. War had a way of making home feel like a foreign country, of making the familiar feel alien. She collected her bag from the carousel, watched it go around twice before she grabbed it. The rifle case was buried at the bottom, wrapped in clothing and a sleeping bag and anything else that would provide padding. She had declared it as sporting equipment at the first checkpoint. No one questioned it. No one looked twice. Just stamped her paperwork and waved her through. She cleared customs without issue. The officer barely glanced at her passport, just stamped it mechanically and gestured to the exit. Another face in the endless stream. Another person going somewhere. She walked out into the arrivals hall. It was too bright. Fluorescent lights that made her squint. Too loud. People everywhere shouting and crying and laughing. Too fast. Everyone rushing in different directions with purpose she could not comprehend. No one was waiting for her. She had not told anyone she was coming back. She had no one to tell. She took a bus to her apartment. It was rush hour. The bus was packed with commuters heading home from work. She stood near the back, holding onto a pole, swaying with each turn. People pressed against her, close enough to touch, but no one looked at her, no one saw her. She was invisible. She got off at her stop 3 blocks from her building, walked slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The neighborhood was older. Brick buildings with fire escapes that zigzagged down the facades like scars. Narrow streets lined with parked cars. Small shops with handwritten signs and windows. The kind of place where people did not ask questions, where neighbors kept to themselves, where you could disappear. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step an effort. Her legs shook, not from exhaustion, from something else, something deeper, something that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. By the time she reached her door, her hands were trembling. She fumbled with the key, dropped it once, picked it up, finally got the door open. She stepped inside, locked it behind her with 3 locks, chain, deadbolt, doorknob. The apartment was exactly as she had left it, frozen in time, One room, kitchenette in the corner with a small sink and two-burner stove. Bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. A single window that looked out onto an alley where trash bins sat in permanent shadow. The furniture was minimal. A futon that doubled as a couch and bed. A desk pushed against the wall, a chair, shelves lined with books about conflict zones, war photography, international humanitarian law, the ethics of intervention, the cost of war. Books she had read and underlined and argued with in the margins. Books that tried to make sense of senseless things. She dropped her bag by the door. The rifle case made a heavy thud against the floor that echoed in the empty space. She stood in the center of the room and did not move for a long time, just stood there, breathing, trying to remember how to exist in this space, in this life, in this skin that felt wrong now, too tight, too confining. The silence was too loud. After weeks of helicopters and generators and gunfire and radio chatter and the constant noise of war, the quiet felt oppressive, crushing. She could hear everything. The clock on the wall ticking, the refrigerator humming, a car passing outside, water running through pipes in the walls. Each sound was too distinct, too sharp, too present. She walked to the desk, opened her laptop with hands that still shook slightly. The screen flickered to life. The background was a photo she had taken years ago. A refugee camp at sunset. Tents stretching to the horizon in organized rows. A child standing alone in the foreground, holding a doll made from rags and string. The child was looking at the camera, eyes too old, too knowing. Her inbox was full, 263 unread emails, requests for articles, pitches for new assignments, editors asking where she was and if she was okay. Colleagues checking in with concern, automated newsletters she had never bothered to unsubscribe from. The digital noise of a life she had left behind. She ignored all of it, clicked past it, opened a blank document, stared at the cursor blinking on the empty page, mocking her, waiting for words that would not come. She was supposed to write about the ambush. That was the assignment. That was what she had been paid to do. An embed piece. First-hand account of Rangers under fire, human interest angle, the kind of story that got clicks and shares and comments and think pieces and debate. But how could she write it? How could she describe what happened without explaining who she was, what she had done, what she was capable of? How could she write about the 11 men without revealing that she had killed them? How could she write about the Rangers without explaining why she had a rifle? She typed the headline with fingers that moved too slowly. Rangers survive Deadly Valley ambush. Then she stopped. Her hands hovered over the keys, frozen in position like a statue. She thought about the moment she pulled, the trigger, the first shot, the way the rifle felt in her hands, familiar, natural, like it had never left. Like the 4 years between then and now had been a dream, a failed experiment, a lie she told herself. She thought about Torrens staring at her with eyes wide, the shock, the fear, the confusion, the way he looked at her like she was a monster wearing human skin. She thought about Declan asking who she was, the way his voice cracked, the way he looked at her like she was a stranger, an imposter, a threat. She thought about Halstead bleeding and demanding answers with pain and betrayal mixed in his voice. Because she had lied, not with words, but with silence, with omission, with a press badge that meant nothing. She thought about the 11 bodies cooling on a ridge in a valley far away. 11 men who would not go home. 11 families who would receive folded flags and empty condolences and questions that would never be answered. 11 lives ended by her hand in under 2 minutes. She typed another line. The ambush occurred at approximately 0900 local time in a contested valley northeast of the forward operating base. It was too sterile, too distant, too clinical, like a police report written by someone who was not there, someone who had not smelled the cordite, had not heard the screaming, had not felt the rifle kick against their shoulder 11 times. She deleted it, tried again. The Rangers were moving through hostile terrain when an IED detonated, triggering a coordinated ambush from elevated positions. Still wrong, still hollow, still missing the truth that pulsed underneath every word. The truth that she was not just a witness. She was a participant, a killer, the reason 8 men lived and 11 men died. She closed the laptop. The screen went dark. She could see her reflection in it, distorted, shadowed. Not quite right. She stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the alley was empty except for a cat rummaging through a trash bin, knocking. The lid off with a clatter. A streetlight flickered on and off. The rhythm was irregular, broken, like a heartbeat with a murmur. She thought about Reese again. She could not stop thinking about him. He was there, always there, in the back of her mind, in the corner of every thought, in the space between heartbeats. After the funeral, she had requested access to the mission footage. They had denied her at first. Classified, need to know, compartmented information. She did not have the clearance anymore. She was no longer active, no longer part of the system. But she had pushed, she had demanded, she had used every contact she still had. She had called in every favor. She had to see what happened. She had to know. She had to understand why. They gave her 20 minutes in a secure room, deep in a building that did not officially exist. No recording devices, no phones, no paper, no pens. Just her and the screen and the truth she did not want to face. She watched Reese deploy with his spotter, a corporal named Davies, 24 years old, married with 2 kids back home. She learned that later from the casualty reports, but in the footage, he was just a voice on the radio. Professional, calm, competent. She watched them move into position. A rooftop overlooking a market square, perfect vantage point, clear sight lines, good cover, solid backstop. Everything was textbook, perfect execution. Reese had done exactly what she taught him. Every movement was by the book. Then the target appeared. High-value individual, confirmed hostile. Responsible for 3 bombings that had killed 27 civilians. Intelligence confirmed by 3 independent sources. Rules of engagement satisfied. Legal authority granted. Clear shot. No civilians in the line of fire. No complications. Simple mission. Reese had him in the scope. The crosshairs centered on the target's head. Range confirmed. 400 meters. Wind negligible. 2 miles per hour from the east. Lighting good. Afternoon sun. No glare. Perfect conditions. The kind of shot she had made him practice 1,000 times. All Reese had to do was pull the trigger. 1 shot, 1 kill, mission complete. Extract and exfil. Home by dinner, write the report, move on. Simple. But he did not. He hesitated. 5 seconds, then 10, then 15. The longest 15 seconds of his life, and the last. The spotter whispered into the comms. She could hear it in the footage. Green light confirmed. Target identified. Take the shot now. Reese did not move. The rifle did not waver. His position was solid, but his finger did not squeeze, did not move, just rested on the trigger guard, frozen. 20 seconds. The target stopped walking, looked around, like he sensed something, like he knew. Survival instinct, the thing that keeps people alive. Take the shot, Davies said again. His voice was more urgent now, losing patience, questioning, doubting. Reese still did not fire. She could see his breathing in the footage, shallow, fast, panicked, all wrong, 25 seconds. The target started moving again, toward a building, toward cover, toward safety. The window was closing. Now, Davies said sharply. Take it now. Do it. 30 seconds. The target reached the building entrance. 1 more step and he would be gone. The mission would fail. They would have to try again. Set up again. Risk exposure again. Reese fired. Too late. A full second too late. The bullet hit the doorframe. Concrete exploded in a cloud of dust. The target disappeared inside, unharmed, alive, free to kill again. Davies turned to Reese in the footage. The helmet camera caught his face. Confusion, anger, disbelief. What happened? Why did you wait? What were you thinking? Reese did not answer. He just stared through the scope at the empty space where the target had been. His breathing was fast, irregular, panicked. Everything she had trained out of him was back. All the discipline gone, the enemy located their position 40. As seconds later, they had been watching, waiting, ready. Return fire came from 3 directions. Coordinated, precise, professional. Reese and Davies were compromised before they even took the shot. It had been a trap, a test, Bait. Davies took a round to the head through the side of his helmet. The weak point died instantly. No last words, no dramatic moment, no time to say goodbye to his wife and kids. Just alive and then not. One moment existing and the next erased. Reese tried to reposition, tried to return fire, but he was alone now, exposed, panicking. His training dissolved like sugar in water. Everything she taught him evaporated. Years of preparation gone in seconds. He lasted another 30 seconds before a sniper round found him. Chest shot, not immediately fatal. The plate caught most of it, but the trauma was severe. He bled out over 2 minutes while the extraction team tried to reach him. The helmet camera recorded everything. His gasping, his crying, his dying, his final. Words repeated over and over like a prayer. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. Embry had watched the entire thing in that secure room. Watched the moment he hesitated. Watched the moment everything fell apart. Watched 2 men die because one of them could not pull the trigger when it mattered, when it counted, when hesitation meant death. She had known then that it was her fault. Not because she taught him wrong, but because she taught him everything except the one thing that mattered most. She taught him how to kill, but not how to live with it. She taught him mechanics, but not meaning. She taught him technique, but not truth. She taught him to be a weapon, but not how to remain human while being one. And that hesitation cost him everything. Cost Davies everything. Cost their families everything. Embry turned away from the window. The alley outside was darker now. The streetlight had stopped flickering, just stayed off, surrendered to the darkness. She sat back down at the desk, opened the laptop again. The blank document stared back at her like an accusation, waiting, demanding, insisting. She started typing. This time, she did not stop to think. Just let the words flow, raw, unfiltered, true. The article took 3 days to write. She worked in silence, broken only by the occasional siren or a car alarm, did not leave the apartment except to buy food from the corner store, instant noodles that tasted like cardboard, canned soup that was too salty, coffee that was too bitter. She ate mechanically, without taste, without pleasure, just fuel, just survival. She did not answer her phone when it rang, did not check her email beyond the initial scan, did not respond to the messages piling up from editors and colleagues who were worried or annoyed, or both. She just wrote, hour after hour, day after day, letting it pour out. She wrote about the ambush, the explosion that lit up the valley, the chaos that followed, the Rangers pinned down under fire from elevated positions, the wounded screaming for medics, the smoke so thick you could not see 5 meters ahead, the fear that hung in the air like electricity before a storm. She wrote about the terrain, the narrow valley carved by ancient water, the elevated positions that provided perfect overlapping fields of fire, the perfect kill zone designed by geography and exploited by experienced fighters, how it was meant to trap them, how it nearly succeeded. She wrote about the Rangers, their training that kicked in automatically, their courage that held the line, their discipline under fire that kept them alive, how they did not break, how they held formation even when everything told them to run, how they trusted each other, how they fought as one. She wrote about the wounded, Valen with his leg torn open by shrapnel, Halstead with his shoulder bleeding through his vest and bandages, Rourke gasping for air with a cracked plate and bruised ribs. Their pain, their fear, their determination to survive. She did not write about herself. She kept her role minimal, almost invisible, embedded journalist, observer, witness, someone who watched but did not participate, someone who documented but did not interfere. She wrote one paragraph about the resolution, brief, clinical, factual. An unknown friendly sniper engaged the hostiles from an elevated position using precision fire. 11 confirmed kills. The ambush was neutralized. The Rangers were extracted with minimal casualties. The identity of the sniper remains classified for operational security reasons. That was it. No names, no details, no explanation of where the sniper came from, or how they got there, or why they had a precision rifle in a media embed operation. She saved the document, read it over 3 times, made small edits, changed words, adjusted phrasing. It was clean, professional, factual, everything an editor would want. Strong narrative, good pacing. Human interest without being maudlin, action without glorifying violence, truth without revealing too much. But it was incomplete, a half-truth, a story with the center carved out like a pumpkin, the important part missing. She scrolled to the end, added one more line. I killed 11 men that day. She stared at it. 5 words. The truth she could not say. The weight she could not share. The confession she could never make. Then she selected the sentence, highlighted it in blue, pressed delete, watched it disappear like it never existed. The cursor blinked where the words had been. Empty space, silence, absence. She sent the article to her editor, a woman named Rachel who worked for a major online publication. Someone who had hired Embry because her work was unflinching, because she went places others would not, because she told stories that mattered, because she made people uncomfortable with the truth. Embry closed the laptop. The screen went dark. She could see her reflection again, ghost-like, translucent, not quite solid. She walked to the futon, lay down, stared at the ceiling. The paint was cracked in places, water damage from a leak that had been fixed years ago, but left permanent marks, scars that could not be hidden. Her phone buzzed an hour later, made her jump. She had not expected a response so quickly. A text from Rachel. Great piece, vivid, gripping, really powerful work. You okay? This feels heavier than your usual stuff. Embry typed back with numb fingers. Yeah, I am fine, just tired. She was not fine, not even close. The article was published 2 days later. It appeared on the front page of the site at dawn. The headline was bold, black text on white background. The photo was dramatic, a shot one of the rangers had taken before the ambush. The valley stretching out, the road snaking through, the ridges looming like ancient sentinels. The article got traction immediately, shared on social media within minutes, linked by news aggregators within hours, discussed in military forums and journalism, groups, analyzed by commentators and retired generals and people with opinions. Some praised it, some criticized it, some questioned the details, some thanked her for telling the story, some accused her of propaganda, some called her a hero, some called her a tool of the military-industrial complex. Embry did not read the comments, did not check the shares, did not watch the traffic numbers climb on the analytics dashboard Rachel sent her with excitement. She just sat at her desk and stared at a photograph in a small wooden frame. It was Reese, the same photo Grayson had shown her, the one from his service record, official military portrait, dress uniform, American flag in the background, name tape visible. He was smiling, young, confident, alive, believing she had prepared him, believing he was ready, believing the lies she had told him. She had kept it all these years, hidden in a drawer wrapped in tissue paper. She could not look at it most days, but today she placed it on the desk, right next to her laptop, where she could see it, where it could see her, where there was nowhere to hide. She whispered to the photo, I am sorry I could not teach you how to come home. The words felt hollow, inadequate, like trying to fill an ocean with a teaspoon, but they were all she had, all she could offer. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again and again, 5 times in 10 minutes, 6, 7. Finally, she picked it up. Unknown number. She almost declined, but something made her answer. Instinct, curiosity, resignation. Hello? A voice she recognized. Grayson? Embry. I read your article. Good work, professional, clean. She did not respond, waited. Grayson continued. You did not mention what you did. You left yourself out completely. I did not think it was relevant. The story was about the Rangers, not me. Grayson was quiet for a moment. The silence stretched long enough to be uncomfortable. She could hear him breathing, thinking, calculating. JSOC still wants you back. The offer stands. Full reinstatement. Your rank restored. Back pay for the time you were gone. Training assignment within a month. You would be teaching again, shaping the next generation, making sure what happened to Kellum does not happen to anyone else, making sure they are really ready, that they know what they are getting into. Embry looked at the photo of Reese, his smile, his confidence, his belief that she had done right by him. his trust that had been misplaced. I told you, I am not going back. You saved 8 lives, Embry. 8 men who are going home because of you. You could save more, hundreds more, maybe thousands over a career. Every sniper you train saves lives. Every lesson you teach prevents another Reese Kellum, another Davies, another family destroyed. Embry closed her eyes. The words hit hard. Because they were true. Because she knew it. Because that was the logic that had kept her in the military for years before Reese died. The belief that what she did mattered. That teaching people to kill was actually saving lives. The paradox she had lived with. I have saved enough, and I have cost enough. The scales do not balance. They never will. Grayson sighed. It was not a sound of frustration, more like sadness, resignation. You are punishing yourself for something that was not your fault. Kellum made a choice. He hesitated. That was on him. It was my fault. I certified him. I signed the paper. I told him he was ready when he was not. I sent him to die. He was ready. He had the skills. He had the training. He had everything he needed technically. What happened was not a failure of training. It was human nature. Hesitation happens. Doubt happens. It is part of being human. Then what was I teaching? What was the point of any of it if the one moment that mattered I could not prepare him for? If all the training meant nothing when it counted, the point was to give him a chance. And you did. He made a choice in that moment. That was on him, not you. You cannot control what people do in the moment of truth. You can only prepare them as best you can. Embry opened her eyes, stared at the photo. He was 22 years old. What choices did he really have? I put him in that position. I made him believe he was ready. I gave him confidence he should not have had. I sent him to die, and I have to live with that. You trained him. You did not kill him. The enemy killed him. The mission killed him. The war killed him. Not you. I might as well have pulled the trigger myself. The result is the same. He is dead. Davies is dead. Their families are destroyed. And I am here, still alive, still breathing, still pretending I did the right thing. Grayson was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was firm, but not unkind. If you change your mind, you know how to reach me. The offer stands. It will always stand. You are too valuable to lose. I will not change my mind. I cannot go back to that. I cannot do it again. The line went dead. Click. Silence. Embry set the phone down, picked up the photo with both hands, held it like it was fragile, like it might break. The frame was cold against her palms. The glass reflected the light from her laptop screen. She could see her own face superimposed over Reese. 2 images, one dead, one alive, both haunted. She thought about what Grayson said. 8 lives. It was true. Valen, Declan, Torrens, Kale, Halstead, Rourke. 2 others whose names she never learned, but whose faces she remembered clearly. 8 men who went home. 8 families that stayed whole. 8 futures that continued. 8 lives saved. 11 lives taken. The math should balance. But it did not. Because the one life that mattered was not on either side of the equation. Reese existed outside the calculation, beyond the numbers, in a space where math did not work. She set the photo back on the desk, opened her laptop, checked her inbox with reluctance. More emails, more requests, a few responses to her article. People thanking her for covering the story. People asking for more details, people questioning her sources, people accusing her of bias or propaganda or being too soft or too hard. One email stood out. It was from Declan. The subject line was simple, direct. Thank you. She opened it with hands that shook slightly. Embry, I do not know if you will read this, but I wanted you to know that the unit talked about what you did. We all agree. You saved us. All of us. Whatever your reasons for being there, whatever your past is, you did not have to help, but you did. And we will not forget that. Ever. If you ever need anything, you have 8 brothers who will answer. No questions asked. That is a debt we can never repay. Declan. Embry read it twice, then a 3rd time. Each word hitting different. She wanted to reply, wanted to say something. But what? Thank you for not asking questions? Thank you for letting me disappear again? Thank you for pretending I am normal. Thank you for not seeing. Me as a killer? She closed the email, did not reply. What could she say that would matter? She stood up, walked to the window again. The alley was still empty, the streetlight still dark, but the sky was changing, clouds moving in, rain coming. She could smell it in the air, that metallic scent that came before a storm. She thought about the moment she pulled the trigger, not the first shot, but the decision before it. The moment she unzipped her backpack, the moment she chose to become who she used to be. The moment she stopped being Embry Coached the journalist and became Embry Caldecott the sniper. She had told herself she was done with that life, that she was a journalist now, a witness, not a participant, not a weapon, not a killer, that she had changed, evolved, moved on. But the truth was simpler and harder. She was still a soldier, still a sniper, still the person who did not miss, still the person who could take lives with mechanical precision. She just did not wear the uniform anymore, did not salute, did not follow orders. But the person underneath had not changed, could not change, was not capable of changing. Days turned into weeks with the rhythm of a slow metronome. Embry took new assignments to fill the empty hours. Refugee camps on the Turkish border, where families waited in limbo. Humanitarian crises in East Africa, where drought and conflict created impossible choices. Displacement zones in Central America, where violence forced migration. Places where cameras mattered more than rifles. Where documentation was the weapon. Where telling the story was the mission. Where bearing witness was resistance. She traveled to border towns where families waited in makeshift camps for asylum hearings that might never come. She photographed children playing in the dirt between tents, their laughter incongruous with their circumstances. She interviewed mothers who had walked 1,000 miles with babies on their backs, feet bleeding, bodies exhausted. She wrote about fathers who had disappeared, swallowed by violence or borders or both, about systems that failed, about bureaucracies that crushed hope, about humanity persisting despite everything. It was good work, important work, work that needed to be done, work that mattered, but it was not enough. At night, wherever she was, whatever bed she slept in or floor she lay on, she still saw Reese, still saw the 11 men on the ridge, still felt the rifle in her hands, still heard the suppressed crack of each shot, still counted 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 11, like a prayer, like penance, like a curse. She wondered if it would ever stop, if time would dull it, if distance would create space, if enough stories about other people would bury her own, if she could document enough suffering to balance out the suffering she caused. It did not. Time changed nothing. Distance meant nothing. Other stories did not matter. One evening, she was sitting in a hotel room in a city she could not remember the name of, editing photos from a recent trip on her laptop, when her phone buzzed, made her jump, startled her out of the trance of work, a message from an unknown number. She opened it with curiosity and dread mixed together. It was a photo. The Rangers, all 8 of them, standing in a line at the forward operating base, crisp uniforms, clean boots, saluting in formation. The image was sharp, professional, clearly taken by someone who knew what they were doing, someone who understood composition and light and meaning. Below the photo was a message. We filed the report like you asked. Your name is not in it, but we know and we will not forget. Stay safe out there. Declan. Embry stared at the photo for a long time, at their faces, at the respect in their posture, at the unity, the brotherhood, the thing she had given up when she left, the thing she could never have again. She saved the image, set it as her phone background, so she would see it every time she looked at her phone, every time she checked the time or read a message or took a photo, a reminder of what she did, of who she saved, of why it mattered. Then she picked up the photo of Reese from her bag, where she kept it wrapped in a protective sleeve in the front pocket of her backpack. She carried it now, everywhere, every assignment, every trip, every flight. A weight that went with her, a ghost that traveled with her. She held it close to her chest, whispered to it like it could hear. I tried to make it right. I tried to balance it out. I do not know if it is enough. I do not know if it will ever be enough. Reese smiled back at her from the frozen moment. Forever young, forever confident, forever believing she had done right by him, forever trusting her, forever wrong about being ready. She set the photo down on the hotel desk, opened her laptop, started writing again with fingers that moved automatically. This time, it was not an article, it was a letter, to Reese, to his family she had never met and never would, to the person she used to be, to the person she was trying to become, to herself. She wrote about the training, the pride she felt watching him improve, the belief that she was doing something good, something noble, preparing warriors, saving lives by teaching others how to take them, the logic that had sustained her, the lie she had believed. She wrote about the mission, the hesitation that cost everything, the moment everything went wrong, the footage she watched, the sounds he made as he died, the words he said on repeat like a broken record. I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. She wrote about the guilt that settled on her shoulders and never lifted no matter how far she ran, the weight that increased with time instead of decreasing, the years of running from herself, the name change, the new life, the attempt to be someone else, someone clean, someone good. She wrote about the valley, the ambush, the decision to pick up the rifle, again, the muscle memory that took over without thought, the training that never left no matter how long she pretended, the person she had always been underneath the journalist costume, the killer wearing a press badge. She wrote about the 11 men, who they might have been, whether they had families waiting, whether they believed in what they were fighting for, whether it mattered, whether their deaths meant something or were just statistics, just numbers in a war with no winners. She wrote about the 8 lives, the faces she remembered clearly, the debt she did not want but could not refuse, the balance sheet that would never balance no matter how many lives she saved, the math that did not work, the equation with no solution. She wrote until her hands hurt and her eyes burned and the sun came up outside the hotel window, until the words ran out and there was nothing left to say, until the page was full and her mind was empty. Then she saved the document with a name that said, Everything, confession.docs. She did not send it, just saved it, in a folder labeled Personal where no editor would ever see it, where it would exist only for her, a record, a testament, a confession no one would read. It was enough to write it, to acknowledge it, to let it exist outside her mind, to give it form and shape and words, to make it real. She closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the city was waking up. People moving to work, cars starting, buses running, life continuing, the world indifferent to her story, to her pain, to her guilt, to her attempt at redemption. She thought about what Halstead said in the valley, bleeding from his shoulder. You saved 8 lives today. She thought about what Valen said before she left the base, leaning on his crutches. You saved my life. Thank you. I get to go home because of you. She thought about what Reese would have said if he could, if he had lived, if he had come home, if he had survived long enough to learn what she had not taught him, if he had figured out on his own how to live with killing. She did not know, but she hoped he would have understood, hoped he would have forgiven her, hoped he would have known she did the best she could with what she had, that she tried, that she cared, that his death broke something in her that could not be fixed. The photo on the desk caught the morning light coming through the window. Reese's face glowed for a moment, illuminated, then faded as the sun moved behind a building. Embry picked up the frame, held it one more time with both hands, then placed it back in the protective sleeve carefully, tucked it into her backpack in the front pocket where it always stayed. Not hidden, just carried, always carried, a burden she chose, a weight she owned, a ghost she traveled with. She did not need to look at it every day, but she needed to know it was there, close, with her. A reminder of what she owed, what she had lost, what she could never get back, what could never be fixed or healed or made right. She grabbed her jacket from the chair, her camera from the desk, her notebook from her bag, her laptop, packed everything with the efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Checked out of the hotel, moved on to the next assignment, the next story, the next place where people suffered and needed someone to witness, to document, to remember, to care. The city was loud and bright and indifferent. She walked down the street, blended into the crowd of commuters and students and tourists. Just another person with a story no one would ever know, with a weight no one could see, with a past that stayed hidden behind a journalist's notebook and a camera lens. But somewhere, in a redacted file in a basement in Virginia, her name was written in permanent ink: Embry Caldecott, former staff sergeant, sniper instructor, disappeared 4 years ago after Operation Cinder, resurfaced briefly during Operation Red Valley, saved 8 soldiers, 11 confirmed kills, disappeared again immediately after, status, inactive, location, unknown, threat assessment, none, value, incalculable, recommendation, do not pursue, let her go. And somewhere, in a small tent on a forward operating base halfway around the world, 8 Rangers sat together in the evening, talking, laughing, alive, planning their next mission, writing letters home to families who were waiting, looking at photos of people they loved, living lives that almost ended because of her. She did not know if that balanced the scales, did not know if anything ever could, did not know if there was a number of lives saved that would erase the one life lost, the one that mattered most, the one she had certified and sent to die, the one she failed, but she carried it. The weight, the truth, the memory, the guilt, the responsibility, the ghost, all of it. Every day, every hour, every breath. And she kept moving forward despite it. One step at a time, one assignment at a time, one story at a time, one witness at a time. The world continued. Wars were fought. People were displaced. Borders were drawn and redrawn. Stories were told and forgotten and told again. Governments fell. Dictators rose. Atrocities happened. Heroes emerged. Victims suffered. And through it all, people like Embry documented it, bore witness, preserved the truth, reminded the world that these were not just numbers. These were people, human beings, with names and faces and stories. Embry covered them all. Her byline appeared in major publications around the world: the New York Times, the Guardian, the Washington Post, Al Jazeera, Reuters. Her photos won awards: Press Photo of the Year, Pulitzer nominations, recognition from humanitarian organizations and journalism groups. Her articles were shared and discussed and debated in classrooms and newsrooms and military briefings and government offices. But her name never appeared in any military record, never showed up in any after action. Report from Operation Red Valley never made it into any official history. The ambush in the valley was credited to unknown friendly forces. The 11 confirmed kills were listed as casualties of engagement. The details were classified. The truth was buried. The file was sealed. She was a ghost, a shadow, a woman who had been 2 people and was now something in between. Not soldier, not journalist, both, neither. Something undefined, something that existed in the space between identities, something that had no name, no category, no box to check on forms. And that was fine. That was acceptable. That was how it had to be, because the people who mattered knew. The Rangers knew. Grayson knew. JSOC knew. The people she saved knew. The system knew. Even if they could not acknowledge it, could not say it out loud, could not put it in writing. And Reese, wherever he was, knew too, in whatever form consciousness took after death. In whatever way the dead witnessed the living, he knew, he saw, he understood, or at least she hoped he did, needed to believe he did, had to believe he did to keep going. Embry walked through cities and villages and camps and war zones, past cafes where people sipped coffee and complained about traffic and argued about politics, past shops where mothers bought food for dinner and fathers read newspapers, past monuments and memorials and moments frozen in bronze and stone, past the living and the dying and everyone in between trying to make sense of it all. She thought about the salute, the way the Rangers stood in formation, the respect in their eyes, the debt they felt they owed, the gratitude that made them uncomfortable because soldiers were not supposed to be saved by civilians, by journalists, by ghosts from classified programs. She thought about the rifle, still in her apartment in a closet she never opened, still in the case, still waiting. Would she ever use it again? Would there be another valley, another ambush, another moment when the only choice was to become who she used to be? She did not know, could not know, would not know until it happened. she thought about Reese. Always Reese, his smile, his confidence, his belief that he was ready, his hesitation, his death, his final words that haunted her every night. I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. She stopped at a crosswalk in a city she would leave tomorrow, waited for the light. Around her, people rushed past in every direction, busy, distracted, alive, thinking about appointments and deadlines and what to make for dinner, living lives untouched by war, by violence, by the weight of taking lives or failing to save them, by the impossible choices that change you forever. She looked up at the sky, clear, blue, endless, the kind of sky that existed above war zones and peaceful suburbs alike, indifferent, eternal, unchanged by human suffering or human joy. And for the first time in 4 years, she felt something other than guilt, not peace. That was too much to ask. Not closure. That did not exist. Not forgiveness. She did not deserve that. But acceptance. Acceptance of who she was, what she had done, what she would carry forever. She had done what she could. She had made the choice that mattered. She had saved the people in front of her when the moment came. She had become a weapon again, because that was what the situation required. And then she had put the weapon away and walked back into the world as something else. She had failed Reese. That was true. That would always be true. That was a fact she could not change. She had certified him when he was not ready in the one way that mattered most. She had taught him mechanics, but not meaning, technique, but not truth, how to kill, but not how to live with it. But she had not failed the Rangers, and maybe, just maybe, that counted for something. Maybe saving 8 lives meant something even if it did not erase the 1 life lost. Maybe the balance was not about numbers. Maybe it was about continuing, about trying, about not giving up despite the weight. The light changed. She crossed the street with the crowd, kept walking, kept moving, kept living, despite everything that said she should stop. Somewhere behind her, the past lingered like a shadow that never left. The memories, the weight, the ghost of a young man who smiled in a photo, the ghost of 11 men who fell on a ridge, the ghost of who she used to be before she learned that teaching people to kill meant teaching them to die. But ahead of her, the world continued, full of stories waiting to be told, full of people needing witnesses, full of moments that needed to be documented and preserved and remembered, full of suffering that needed exposure, full of injustice that needed light, full of humanity that needed to be seen and acknowledged and honored. She was a witness now. That was her identity. That was her purpose. That was how she balanced the scales as much as they could be balanced. That was her redemption if redemption was possible. That was her penance if penance mattered. She would document, she would preserve, she would remember, she would tell the stories of people who had no voice. She would shine light into dark places. She would bear witness to suffering and survival and everything in between. She would make sure the world saw what it preferred to ignore. And maybe, if she did it long enough, if she told enough stories, if she saved enough truth from being forgotten, maybe it would be enough. Maybe it would balance out the one life she could not save, the one that mattered most. Maybe the math would work eventually. Maybe the equation would solve itself. Or maybe it would not. Maybe the balance was impossible. Maybe the weight would never lift. Maybe the guilt would never fade. Maybe she would carry it forever. But she would keep trying anyway, because that was all she could do, all anyone could do. Keep moving, keep trying, keep witnessing, keep documenting, keep remembering, keep honoring the dead by serving the living. Embry Coached walked into the city, disappeared into the crowd, became invisible again, just another face in the stream of humanity flowing through the day. Another person with a camera and a notebook and a story to tell. But she was there, watching, recording, remembering, carrying the weight no one else could see, bearing the burden no one else knew existed, living with choices no one else had to make, honoring debts no one else owed. And in a valley halfway around the world, the wind blew across empty ridges where the ambush had happened. Dust swirled where bodies had fallen, where brass casings had been collected, where blood had soaked into sand and dried in the sun. The sun rose and set and rose again in endless cycles. Seasons changed from hot to cold and back again. Patrols passed through on new missions. Life continued despite death. and no one spoke the name of the woman who had been there, who had pulled the trigger 11 times, who had saved 8 lives and carried the weight of 1, who had been a ghost and a weapon and a witness all at once, who had been 2 people and was now something else entirely. But the Rangers remembered, and they always would, until the day they died. They would remember. They would carry their own weight, their own debt, their own gratitude. Because some people do not ask for recognition. They just do what needs to be done, and then they walk away, quietly, with dignity, carrying the weight no one else can see, living with choices no one else has to make, bearing burdens no one else can understand, honoring obligations no one else knows exist. Embry was one of those people, and she would carry it for the rest of her life, however long that was, however far she traveled, however many stories she told, one step at a time, one day at a time, one story at a time, one photo at a time, one article at a time, one witness at a time, one breath at a time, until the weight became part of her, until it was not a burden but a reminder of who she was, what she had done, why it mattered, what she owed, what she could never repay, what she would spend the rest of her life trying to balance. The city moved around her, indifferent, unaware, alive with its own concerns. People laughed in cafes, children played in parks, couples held hands on corners, dogs barked, birds sang. The world turned. Life continued despite everything, and she moved with it. A ghost among the living, a soldier among civilians, a weapon among witnesses, a killer among journalists. A woman who had been 2 people and was now something more, something harder to define, something that existed in the space between, something that had no name, something that simply was. She was Embry coached, freelance journalist, war correspondent, witness to conflict, documentarian of human suffering and survival, teller of uncomfortable truths, and she was Embry Caldecott, former staff sergeant, sniper instructor, the woman who did not miss, the woman who trained warriors and sent them to war, the woman who certified Reese Kellum and watched him die, the woman who picked up a rifle in a valley and saved 8 lives, the woman who killed 11 men in under 2 minutes. Both, neither. Something in between, something new, something that carried the past but lived in the present, something that owned the weight and moved forward anyway despite it. And that was her truth. The only one that mattered, the only one she could live with, the only one that allowed her to keep breathing, keep moving, keep existing. She kept walking. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The day continued with its own rhythm. People moved around her like water around a stone. Life flowed. She remained, solid, unmoved, letting it all pass while staying rooted in herself. And somewhere, in a drawer in a small apartment in a city that barely knew her, a photograph of a young soldier smiled at no one, forever 22, forever confident, forever believing she had prepared him, forever trusting her, forever wrong about being ready, forever dead because of choices made in a moment, but also forever remembered, forever honored, forever carried, in a protective sleeve, in a backpack, across continents and war zones and refugee camps and cities, a reminder of what was lost, what could not be saved, what she would spend the rest of her life trying to balance. Embry walked on, into the crowd, into the city, into the next story, into the rest of her life, whatever that meant, wherever it led, however it ended, carrying the weight, bearing the burden, living with the truth, honoring the dead, serving the living, witnessing, documenting, remembering, one step at a time, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, until the end. Whenever that came, however it arrived, she would keep going, keep trying, keep witnessing, because that was all anyone could do, all she could do. Keep going. Have you ever known someone who carried a weight so heavy it shaped their entire life? Someone who made choices that cost them everything but saved others? Someone who walked away from recognition because the burden was more important than the glory? Someone who witnessed suffering and documented truth because that was the only redemption available? If you have, share their story below. Let their sacrifice be known. Let their truth be told. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about the hidden costs of service and the invisible burdens people carry, If it made you see the world differently even for a moment, consider subscribing, because there are more stories like this. Stories of people who did what was right when no one was watching. Stories of choices made in darkness that saved lives in the light. Stories that deserve to be told and remembered, always remembered, because forgetting would be the greatest tragedy of all.
You know what I cannot stop thinking about? It is not the 11 shots. It is not even the ambush or the way she assembled that rifle in 8 seconds, like it was muscle memory she could not erase no matter how hard she tried. What stays with me is that sentence, the one she typed and then deleted. I killed 11 men that day. 5 words, the complete truth, and she erased it like it never happened, because that is what she does now. She documents everyone else's story but removes herself from the narrative entirely. She saved 8 lives in under 2 minutes, and her name appears nowhere. Not in the report, not in the official record, nowhere. And I think that says everything about the weight she carries. Because for her, saving 8 does not balance losing 1. The math does not work that way when the one you lost trusted you completely, when he believed you had prepared him for what was coming, when his last words were an apology for failing. That is the kind of weight that does not lift, not with time, not with distance, not even with heroism. There is this one moment in the story that I keep coming back to, when the Rangers stood in formation and saluted her, all 8 of them, the ones she saved, standing there showing respect and gratitude in the only way soldiers know how, and she just stood there, frozen, because every part of her wanted to salute back. You could feel it, years of training and discipline and muscle memory all screaming at her to return the gesture, but she could not, because she is not military anymore. She gave that up. She walked away, and standing there, unable to salute back while 8 men honored her, that moment says everything about who she is now versus who she used to be. She is caught between 2 identities, the soldier who saves lives by teaching people to take them, and the journalist who documents suffering instead of causing it, and neither one feels right anymore, neither one fits, because the soldier in her failed Reese, and the journalist in her had to pick up a rifle anyway. So where does that leave her? Somewhere in between, carrying both, belonging to neither. I think what this story is really about is something we do not talk about enough. The fact that you can be incredibly good at something and still choose not to do it. That competence does not equal obligation. Embry was one of the best sniper instructors the military ever had. They told her that. They wanted her back. They offered her everything, and she said no, not because she could not do it, but because she knew what it cost. She knew that teaching people to kill meant teaching them to die. That signing a piece of paper saying someone is ready means living with it when they are not, when they hesitate at the wrong moment, when they die because of something you did not teach them, something you could not teach them because it cannot be taught. How do you teach someone to be okay with taking a life? How do you prepare someone to go home and look at themselves in the mirror after killing another human being? You cannot. That is something each person has to figure out alone. And Embry knows that now. She learned it too late to save Reese, but she learned it. And that knowledge is exactly why she cannot go back, because going back means certifying more young soldiers, signing more papers, sending more people into situations where hesitation means death. And she cannot carry another Reese. She is already carrying one, and it is crushing her. And here is the thing about invisible weight. The people around you have no idea. The Rangers saw her save them. They saw the precision, the competence, the 11 perfect shots. They have no idea about the one shot that was never taken, the one that mattered most, the one that cost Reese and Davies everything. They see the hero. She sees the failure. They want to honor her. She wants to disappear. They owe her their lives. She owes Reese something she can never repay. And that gap between how others see us and how we see ourselves, that is where so much human pain lives. You can be a hero to 8 people and still feel like a failure because of the one you could not save. Because guilt does not do math. It does not balance. It does not care that you saved more than you lost. It just sits there, heavy, constant, unforgiving. A lot of people watching this have carried something similar. Maybe not exactly this. Maybe you were never a sniper instructor. Maybe you never saved anyone in combat. But you have felt this, the weight of a choice that went wrong, the guilt of something you could have done differently, the feeling that no matter what you accomplish now, it does not erase what happened then. You do not need a military background to understand what Embry is going through. You just need to have ever felt responsible for something you could not control, to have ever been good at something that hurt people, to have ever walked away from who you were because staying meant becoming someone you could not live with. That feeling is universal. It crosses every boundary, every profession, every life. We all carry ghosts. We all have our own version of Reese. The person we feel we failed, the moment we cannot take back, the choice we wish we could remake. So, I want to ask you something, and I really want to know what you think. Do you think Embry made the right choice, refusing to go back to teaching, walking away from something she was exceptional at because of what it cost? Or do you think Grayson was right when he said she could save hundreds more lives by training the next generation better? By making sure what happened to Reese does not happen to anyone else? Is redemption found in walking away or in going back and trying to do it better? And here is the harder question, the one that really sits with me. Do you think saving those 8 Rangers gave her any peace at all, even for a moment? Or do you think it just added more weight, more faces to remember, more people who know what she is capable of, more evidence that she is still that person underneath everything, the one who does not miss, the weapon wearing a press badge? What moment in this story stayed with you the most? Was it the ambush, the salute, the deleted sentence, Reese's final words, something else entirely? I would genuinely love to know what landed with you, what made you think, what made you feel something. Because stories like this, they hit different parts of us, and your perspective matters.